Right, are we ready? Here we go.
Why is it considered poor practice to store batteries loose in a tool bag? The tool bag will be heavy and could damage your back. They give off a poisonous gas in a confined space. You might forget to charge them. If the terminals short out, they could cause a fire. When might people suffering with mental health issues need help at work? They will regularly need help to avoid them having a panic attack. Up to once a week to take some of the strain off them. When their site supervisor or manager says so. As and when a situation arises in which help is needed.
Which of the following do you not need to do to ensure that someone's mask works? Check the mask is being worn correctly. Check the mask underwater to make sure the seals are tight. Check the mask is the correct type needed. Check the user has passed a face fit test while wearing the mask. To help protect outdoor workers from the risk of skin cancer from sun exposure, what should be worn? A small amount of deodorant and vest tops. Extra moisturizer on the face and short-sleeved shirts. Low-factor tanning oil and short-sleeved shirts. High-factor sunscreen and long-sleeved clothing. What must you do when using water to keep dust down when cutting? Ensure that there is as much water as possible. Pour water onto the surface before you start cutting. Make sure that the water flow is correctly adjusted. Get someone to stand next to you and pour water from a bottle. On site, waste should be collected in what? General skips, bins and bays, segregated skips, bays and buckets.
What does this sign mean? Do not touch. Use the handrail. No gloves. Stop button.
The quickest way to your work area is through a contractor's vehicle compound. Which way should you go? Straight through the compound if no one is looking. Around the compound every time. Around the compound if vehicles are moving. Straight through the compound if no vehicles appear to be moving.
How is working at height defined? Working at any height that could cause an injury if you fell. Working 3 meters above the ground or higher. Working 1.2 meters above the ground or higher. Working 2 meters above the ground or higher. Which of the following is most likely to be caused by exposure to wet cement? Silicosis, dermatitis, eczema, hearing loss, How should your employer provide you with information about site traffic rules? During the site induction, use a Health and Safety Executive HSE inspector. Ask other workers on site to tell you. Place a note on the site notice board.
Who is responsible for reporting any unsafe conditions on site? Everyone on the construction site, the site manager, the contracts manager, the client or principal contractor.
What can cause occupational dermatitis? Contact with another person who has dermatitis. Working in the sun without sun cream. Using tools that vibrate. Contact with some strong chemicals or substances.
Where are you most likely to come across asbestos? In any industrial building built after the year 2000. Asbestos has now been removed from all houses and buildings. In a house built between 1950 and 2005. In any building built or refurbished before the year 2000.
What does wearing hearing protection do? Helps you to hear better. Stops you hearing all noise in the workplace. Reduces damaging noise to an acceptable level. Repairs your hearing if it is damaged.
What should you wear if there is a risk of materials flying into your eyes? Laser safety glasses, tinted welding goggles, chemical-rated goggles, impact-rated goggles.
Which two of the following are the best ways to reduce the risks of slips and trips for pedestrians? Audio messaging being played. Warning sirens. Adequate heating. Adequate lighting. Good housekeeping.
What should you do if the electrical equipment you are using cuts out? Switch off the power and look for signs of damage. Shake it to see if it will start again. Pull the electric cable to see if it is loose. Switch the power off and on a few times.
Which signal is being shown in this image? Danger, emergency stop. Move backwards. Turn right or left. Move forwards.
What is hand-arm vibration syndrome? HAVS. A mild skin rash that will go away eventually. A serious skin condition affecting the arms that will not clear up. A range of conditions that can lead to permanent damage. An injury caused by severe frostbite to the hands.
What is the correct way to climb a ladder? Having 3 points of contact with the ladder at all times. by having 2 people on the ladder at all times. Only using the ladder when wearing a safety harness. Having 2 points of contact with the ladder at all times.
The seal between an item of respiratory protective equipment, RPE, and a worker's face is most likely to be affected by which 2 of the following?
What was that question again?
The seal between an item of respiratory protective equipment, RPE, and a worker's face is most likely to be affected by which 2 of the following? The wearer's age, dust levels, beard growth, sunlight, wearing safety goggles.
What should you do if you need to carry a load down a steep slope? Carry the load on your shoulder. Walk backwards down the slope to help you balance. Put the load down and let gravity move it down the slope. Assess whether you can still carry the load safely. What should a worker do if they feel the task they are doing is no longer safe because of weather conditions? Stop working immediately and inform the supervisor. Carry on working because they are following the method statement. Carry on working if others are doing so. Work until the end of the day, then tell the supervisor. What is the first thing you should do if you find an unmarked container that you think might contain chemicals? Ensure that it remains undisturbed and report it. Move the container to somewhere safe. Smell it to see what the chemical is. Put the container in a bin to get rid of it. What should you do if your permit to work in a confined space will run out before you finish the task you are carrying out? Carry on working until the job is finished. Hand the permit over to the next shift. Ask your supervisor to change the date on the permit. Leave the confined space before the permit runs out. What does a permit to work authorize? Tasks to be carried out safely under strictly controlled conditions. Untrained people to operate certain tools without supervision. Health and Safety Executive, HSE inspectors to visit the site without warning. The emergency services to come onto the site after an accident. Mobile access towers should be erected by anyone who will be using the equipment, someone who is trained and competent, an apprentice as it is good practice for them, anyone who has the tools.
A particle filter is suitable for use in which one of the following situations? An oxygen-deficient atmosphere, when dust and fibres are in the air, presence of gases, presence of vapours.
What is the best way to stop people being hit by falling tools and materials when you are working above them? Make sure they are wearing safety helmets. Only allow authorized people underneath the work area. Exclude people from below the work area with fencing and signs. Tell them you will be working above them and erect signs.
If a worker is feeling symptoms or showing signs of stress at work, what should they do? Speak to someone they trust, like a friend or someone independent. Arrive and start work at a later time. Tell the rest of the team about their problems. Eat or drink more during the day. What should all risk assessments identify? How to report accidents, the employer, the hazards in the work environment, the Health and Safety Executive, HSE.
Which of the following can be an indicator of stress? Increased productivity, inability to deal with usual workload, feelings of confidence at work, feeling valued at work. Loading and storage areas should be located where? Close to the welfare facilities, away from the main construction worksite, outside the site boundary area, away from pedestrian-only areas and main pedestrian routes. Where should vehicles be loaded and unloaded? On uneven ground, on a downward slope, on an upward slope, on level ground. Which one of the following is true about escape routes? Escape routes should be narrow so people walk in single file. Escape routes should be kept clear and unobstructed at all times. Stored materials should be kept covered if stored on an escape route. Escape routes must have concrete walls to prevent fire. Workers are likely to suffer the highest levels of fatigue due to what? Appropriately designed shift work schedules and reduced production targets. Poorly designed shift work schedules and reduced production targets. Poorly designed shift work schedules and long working hours. Appropriately designed shift work schedules and short working hours. Which one of the statements about storing materials on a working platform is correct? Materials can be stored unsecured, but they must be above guardrail height. Materials do not need to be secured if they are going to be there for less than an hour. Materials can be stored anywhere, even if they pose a trip hazard or block the walkway. Materials must be stored so they can't fall, and the platform must be able to take their weight.
If you have to work outdoors in bad weather, why should your employer supply you with waterproof clothing? To protect you from the weather, which will reduce trips and falls. To protect you from the weather, as you are less likely to get muscle strains if you are warm and dry. To keep you warm and dry, so you are less likely to catch Weil's disease, leptospirosis. To keep you warm and dry, so you take fewer breaks. In order to reduce the risk of accidents, which one of the following should be avoided when driving vehicles on site? Implement a one-way system around the site. Reverse without the use of a vehicle marshaller. Use designated turning areas. Drive through loading and unloading areas. What information should be gathered after a near-miss incident occurs? Where those involved lived at the time of the incident. The activities that were being carried out at the time. The cost of the project at the time of the incident. The names of next of kin for the people involved. You have been asked to do some work that will create dust. What should you do? You should not do the work because dust is highly dangerous. Use equipment to eliminate or reduce the dust and wear the correct personal protective equipment, PPE. Start the work. No controls are needed as dust cannot cause serious harm or injury. Work for short periods at a time. Regular breaks will reduce the amount of dust you breathe in. Evacuation routes should be used as assembly points, clear and unobstructed, lit at all times of the day, painted bright green,
Which of the following statements about gas leaking from a liquefied petroleum gas, LPG cylinder, is true? It's not a problem if a risk assessment has been carried out beforehand. Any leak will always cause a fire and evacuation should be immediate. It can catch fire at some distance from the original leak and flash back to the source. It is only dangerous if there is a heat source very close to the cylinder.
Why is it bad practice to store heavy materials underneath a tree? Compaction of the soil could damage the tree roots. Materials are not protected from the tree sap. The tree branches could get damaged. Mold could grow on the stored materials.
According to the guidance on underground service pipes, what does a yellow service pipe carry? Water, gas, telecoms, electricity.
What is the recommended maximum voltage for electrical equipment on construction sites? 12 volts. 24 volts, 230 volts, 110 volts. Why should construction materials be recycled? To prevent excessive hazardous waste. To avoid waste going to landfill. To save the company money. Because skips are expensive.
What should you do if you cannot do a job in the way described in the method statement? Contact the Health and Safety Executive, HSE. Make up a better way to do it and carry on. Do not start work until you have talked to your supervisor. Ask other workers how they think it should be done. Which part of the body is most likely to be injured when lifting heavy loads?
I wrote the answer, right? And I wrote the wrong letter.
What numbers? $24. Might be wrong. What other number?
That got me that one right. Yeah,
I can't.
I think it's still good. I don't use basically the word useful landfill money.
But then, same with the preventing excess of
It's more or less to a CPB, I think. But I don't think it's big.
big.
Oh!
Construction.
The reason I'm thinking of changing my mind, it's definitely not them two. Right? It's because the word hazardous to prevent. That's got to be that. Boom. Aye. B was right. Just put up it.
In that case, I'm definitely not going to put questions
Right. Number 1, D. 2, D. 3, B. 4, D. 5, C. 6, C. 7, A. 8, B. 9, A. 10, B. 11, A. 12, A. 13 is D. 14 is D. 15, C. 16, D. 17 is, oh, what was it? D and E. D and E. 18, A. 19, A. 20, C. 21, A. 22 is C and E. 23, D. 24, A. 25, A. 26, D. 27, D. 28, 27, A. 20. Did I apologise? Yeah, 27 is A. 28 is C, B, A, B even. The 28 is B. Look, have I been smoking the funny stuff? 29, B. 30, C. 31, A. 32, C. 33, B. 34, D. 35, D. 36, B. 37, C. 38, D. 39, B. 40, B. 41, B. 42, B. 43, B. 44, C. 45, A. 46, B. 47, D. 48, B. 49, C. 50, you all get right, which is the back. Have I smashed you? Shut up. Did you? That's brilliant, mate. Excellent. So, which one did you get wrong? Were you not just copying off me, like? 21. Did you? I know, I was watching you. 21. What did you put? Better. Getting up, see, you're in the low, the high 30s, you're getting towards 45s. Was it really? Right.